Welcome to Empowermente, the headquarters of personal empowerment. Welcome, Diana. I'm so excited to have you. You're such a powerhouse, and I'm so excited to do this podcast episode with you. And so I met Diana in person here in Phoenix. She's been the most welcoming and loving soul to me. So I really appreciate her friendship, and I'm happy to share her a little bit with y'all so y'all can get inspired by her and get to know her a little bit. So Diana, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you for anybody who hasn't met you.
Yeah. So yeah, it was actually really nice that you moved here, Gina. I always tell people like online friends, right? Like that's like a thing, especially being like very visible like online. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this online friend. I always tell my audience, I have this online friend that I'm gonna go meet in person. He's like, how do you have like online friends? And then like, how do they end up becoming your real life friends? So really happy that you moved here, Gina. Really quickly, my name is Lee Guzman. I was born and raised here in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been here for most of my life. I did move away for a little while for college, and then I came back to work as a software engineer. So my background is actually in computer science. So I am a certified nerd. I love all things tech, all things coding. That's a huge passion of mine, a huge interest of mine. And yeah, I worked as a software engineer for about five and a half to 6 years, and then started a nonprofit full time to show others the magic of the computing world and to encourage others to consider the computing field for their careers.
You're so cool. You are so cool. And yeah, and how would you describe Phoenix to somebody who has never experienced it? Because I feel like I'm in a unique situation where, like, I've moved a lot and people like are always curious about like how is it there, and I'm like, wow, like Phoenix has treated me really well. Like it's very there's a really big Latino entrepreneur community, which I really
Oh, yeah.
appreciate. It is green, a desert, beautiful greenery. So, como que, ¿qué dirías a alguien que no conoce Phoenix? O sea, la finiquera.
Yeah. So I love Phoenix, obviously, biased from growing up here, living here. But it is definitely a place that is one, very well organized. We're on like a grid system, which makes just getting around super easy. Um,
People have explained that to me like multiple times, and I feel like I finally get it.
so like the little engineering, like the little grid papers that we would use. Yeah, that's literally Phoenix. And on top of that is we're a growing city. We're one of the fastest growing cities here in the United States, specifically Maricopa County, which is honestly really cool because now you start to get a lot more things to do. I remember growing up, it definitely felt a little bit more like smaller city, kind of big town sort of feel. But definitely now it's like we're getting so many more food options, event options, folks just coming in from all over the place. They're bringing in their own experiences from across the US. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. 9 out of the 12 months.
Let's not touch on the summer, but no, I do resonate with that. There's so much to do and communities for every single thing you're interested in. Hiking, there's some beautiful mountains inside the city, so definitely like a beautiful city overall, especially like right now.
See, and to add to that is, a lot of folks think Phoenix resembles the entire Arizona sort of landscape. And I would just like to know that Arizona is super diverse. Like you have the Sonoran Desert, but also you drive 2 hours north and you're in Snowbowl, in one of the snowiest cities in the United States. You also have Sedona, beautiful, like iron rich rocks that are like super like red, which you don't see like very often. We have Antelope Canyon, we have Grand Canyon. There's just so many different landscapes and things to explore here for sure.
Yes, that is so true. And Sedona has gained so much popularity. Like it's
Oh
become
yeah.
like a trending city in the last like 5 years. And it is really, I mean, I've traveled a lot and it's just so unique. And I was researching like, why is it that it is so like beautiful to see? And it's because not a lot of places have that red copper color with the green, so it's just like so unique, and the hiking places are there. So if you have not checked out Sedona, definitely recommend it. And talking about Phoenix, I'm curious to know, what was your relationship? You told us you're in tech now, but like growing up in Phoenix, what was it like in that relationship to tech and STEM? Did you have role models in tech, or what was that experience like?
Yeah, I think growing up, I did not have anyone in my sort of immediate circle that was like in tech. I actually didn't know that I would like tech at all until maybe like I was 17, 18 years old. I was pretty late bloomer in that aspect. But I have always been interested in I've always been very curious. Like I remember growing up and having like a leapfrog, and like that was like revolutionary for me because I was like, oh, like I get to sort of time myself to see like how many bones can I name in 60 seconds? How many like state capitals can I name in 60 seconds? It was always like those things that I was really curious about. But when it came to tech, I didn't necessarily have a natural draw to it.
Mhm.
I actually joined a robotics team, First Robotics, for inspiration and recognition of science and technology.
Yeah.
I joined a team literally like my senior year of high school, and I was interested more in the mechanical and electrical aspects of that. Um, but I never really tried like computer programming, or specifically just like more on the techie side of things instead of like the physical side of things. So that did not come to me until I was a freshman in college.
Mhm.
And I actually enrolled as a mechanical engineering major
Mhm.
because I was part of first, and I was like, oh, I like working with my hands. I like doing this. And I feel like I'm confident, like I'm good. And when I went to college, I was like, you know what? I'm really interested about learning about computer programming. Let me just try a class. So I enrolled in like intro to computer science, and I learned like the basics of like how to write a print statement, hello world, loops and things of that sort. And honestly, I was terrible at it. Oh my God, I was so terrible at it. But I was like, you know what? I am interested in this, and I'm paying a bunch of money to be in school right now, that I'm going to continue to dive into the things that I'm interested in, because it's like I'm already paying a lot of money. I might as well do it. So I just kind of stuck with it. I literally changed my major after the first semester,
Yeah.
and I was like, we're going to stick with it. Terrible at it, but I was like, I'm interested. So I'm going to continue to dive into that. And one thing led to another. Being in computer science, I did not see myself going into academia any further with my computer science degree. So typically, as computer scientists, you tend to go into like the software engineering fields, or some highly technical field like that. And for me, it was software engineering. So my job was to go code. And the more that I dove into my work, the more I realized, oh my God, I really love the stuff that I'm building here. And the projects that we're working on are actually super interesting and cool.
Wow, I did not know that. I did not know that you started in mechanical engineering. And it's so important to note that you considered yourself not to be good at it, but then that since you enjoyed it, you stuck to it and persevered. And I think in our society, and especially I think in the Hispanic community, there is admiration for natural talent or things that come naturally. It's like, oh, like if you got it on your first try, then you're meant to do this the rest of your life, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was talking about it with somebody this weekend, but it's really not about that. I mean, I think people who are naturally good at it, it's great, but they're not going to be at the same level if they don't continuously invest in learning and growing into their craft. And so I just love that you had that mentality from the get-go. You were like, hey, I don't care that I'm not good, because I can get good at it. And that's the mentality that will shape any visionary, any successful person, because we're not going to be good at every single thing that we try on the first try. And so that's really admirable. So that's really amazing that you did that. And in terms of like growing up, and like not seeing that tech representation, I think many times it is actually really funny how a lot of like us first gen college graduates choose like our majors. We're just kind of like, well, like I think this is this and I'm hoping for the best, but like we don't have somebody who can like go and interview and ask. So I was that the experience for you?
So partially yes, and I think because when someone says, "Oh, engineering," even people who are going into engineering don't even really know what it is. You're just like, "Yeah, it sounds cool. I'm good at math. I think that'll fit.
Yeah,
Like, I think that'll fit the puzzle for me." Because typically, like when students are like good at math, like that was something that I like. There was something in my brain that did really well with like pattern recognition that it was like, "You're good at this thing," and I
yeah,
was like, I don't know what to do with it. Like it's such a highly theoretical thing that it's like, how is it really applicable to like real
yeah.
life, like learning about like derivations or like
It,
supplemental angles?
yeah,
Like, and so I was like, maybe like a math teacher, like that's something that I'm like, it could directly tie into that. But I never thought of engineering. And even when I did think of it, I was like, I don't know, you build stuff, I guess. I don't really know. So I was like, this just sounds good. So let's just go in that direction. But I did have, I wasn't completely, did not have it's not that I did not have a role model completely, just not in tech
yeah,
specifically.
yeah, yeah.
My padrino, he's actually a civil engineer.
Mm,
And that was sort of my first intro to like real world engineering that wasn't like robotics like at school.
mhm.
So that also helped me lean in the direction of engineering. So it was like also my senior year, and I asked him, I was like, "Can you take me to like your job site?" And he took me out to like an area where there were like crops and they were like building a new highway. And I was just like, "Oh, okay, like cool, you're building stuff, like the blueprints, all these things." And I was just like, "Yeah, like I think that's something that I'd be like interested and capable of doing."
Yeah,
I didn't go the civil engineering route. I did go like the mechanical engineering route, but then I quickly like pivoted. But
yeah,
yeah, there were some like little crossovers between like things that I'm interested in. My Nino also like inspired me to consider also the engineering field on top of being involved in first. I think that's
yeah,
a big thing is sometimes it's not just like one event that really changes our entire lives, but it's like the small accumulation of multiple events,
yeah.
and there's one that just was the tipping point. But all these other little things happened like leading up to that tipping point. And
Yeah, and I think when we think about inspiring and shaping the next generation and youth, it's really like that. It's amazing to be one of their data points, right? As to like, okay, Diana told me this, and she taught me this through her nonprofit, and hopefully that like is part of their decision making and their path. And I know that for you, you left. I mean, you're a Phoenix and Arizona native, and you left to New York, which was like so far and so different, And anybody who knows me knows that I appreciate traveling because I know it's such a quantum leap in terms of what you can learn and the person that you become. I'm just curious, what was that experience for you at NYU? Like, yeah, how did that play a role? Like when you think about it, like, oh yeah, I did that. Like, how does that? What feelings does that surface?
I think for me, looking back at that point in my life, I think, in reflection now, I'm like, that 18-year-old was brave. She just did not care. She was like, "Goodbye, guys. Like, I'm gonna go see this new side of the world." Um, and some of the things that I think about and that I reflect on, I'm like, wow, is there were a lot of changes going on at once. A lot of them, I call them growing pains.
Yeah,
Because it was forcing sort of my brain to expand to like have these new experiences and new versions of life compared to the first 18 years of my life. but also like there's pain associated there because now it's like I have to operate at a new level to survive in this environment.
Yeah.
There's the piece where you have to be, you're at 18 years old, you have to be super like hyper independent because absolutely nobody's checking on you, which is true about college in general.
Yeah.
But on top of that, like nobody's there to make sure you're fed. Nobody's there to make sure that you have clothes, that rent is paid, none of this stuff, right? So, uh, yeah, it just kind of, your survival mode sort of kicks in. And
Yeah.
you're like, great, I went from not having a lot of responsibilities, going to high school and going, living with my parents to now being like full blown, like adult, going
Yeah.
to college in a super tough, like, and a super tough major, right? And in an environment where other students grew up fundamentally different than you.
Yeah.
Like also being exposed to like this is the new caliber of
Mhm.
instruction that we're giving, and they had really high expectations. So like I like to be very careful with my words, but the high school that I went to, a lot of the students were barely like graduating. So like they couldn't really push academic rigor
Mm-hmm.
because it's like the kids are barely like there's just so much going on systemically that it's like these kids parents like they're having trouble with rent, so like there's students aren't getting to class, all the things. So it's kind of like, well, we can't really like hound them on the academics because we're happy that they're here, which
Yeah.
is also wonderful, right? We're trying to get as many students through and educated through the public school system. But on the other end of that is like not getting the academic rigor that prepares you for
Mm-hmm.
super tough majors like engineering. And then with some of the students that I went to at NYU, they did have excellent support systems. Like
Yeah.
my first year there, all three of my roommates, so we were four in a suite. One of them had a dad who was an engineer, but he was like an inventor. So he had like his own like, I know that's like such a strange thing. Like he made a living out of inventing stuff. Like he's just like it was like biomedical like engineering, like
Mhm.
yeah, paying her tuition cash. And my other roommate, her dad was a pharmacist. And my other roommate also had her like tuition paid in cash, right? And this is like $70,000 a year.
Yeah.
So this was just like my parents barely could make that, maybe combined in an entire year. How are your parents paying this cash out? So it did like my world sort of exploded where it's like
Yeah.
the way that I grew up is not a universal truth. And
Yeah.
I like my experience is just like a small, significant, but it is a small reflection of like where I grew up. But there's like an entire world with like totally diverse experiences. I also went there and like this is where I met folks from all over the world. So I grew up in the same neighborhood my entire life. And this is where I met like, oh, one of my roommate, she's Korean. My other, one of my close friends, he's from Egypt. Another close friend is from Jordan. Like all over the world, right? And these are sorts of now you get to have conversations with people who live fundamentally different than you, and it just really sort of gives you a more holistic perspective of like the human experience, which is really cool.
Oh, yeah. And you had that experience so young. For me, I experienced that later in life because I had the commuter experience of going to college. And so, what you're describing, I think I experienced it in my first internship, where my roommate for my internship, her grandfather was like best friends with like somebody who went to space. So it was just like, okay, like it was just like feeling that feeling of like, wow, we have lived completely different upbringings and lives, and we are still both here in the same position. But at the same time, of course, you feel proud of that, but you think, at least for me, it's like how easily I could have fallen through the system cracks and not be here, right? And so I think we're going to get into this, but I think it might have planted a seed of like just a lot of fire, because it's like we we have so many different points where our life could be completely different thanks to the systems that we live in.
Yes, no, 1,000% to that. And to add to what you're saying, both of you are in the same sort of position at that point in your lives where it's when you don't come from a lot of maybe resources like financial resources, network, it takes a different type of beast, right, to get through that. And I've always said, like, when you have a lot of those resources, how do I say? I'm just gonna say it is, when you have a lot of those resources, you can be mediocre and make a decent life. When
Yeah.
you don't have them, you have to be exceptional to even make a decent life. And
Yeah.
that's really tough.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I got goosebumps when you said that, because we are such high achievers, right? And sometimes it's easy to be so hard on ourselves. That's my experience with my community, and even people in my empowerment circle. And I look at them and I'm like, you have to understand that you're like one in a million. Like, the things that are doing are so intentional, so special, and it took a lot, because even just being in those spaces took double the effort, to be able to showcase your skills in a way that was culturally relevant, right? Like, and then the finances piece, like investigating with no guidance. So props to you for doing that so young. And I'm interested to hear how that shaped your path as you continued, and graduated from NYU. I know that you worked for two huge companies, Boeing and Microsoft, which is where we first interacted. Um, what was your experience there? I mean, we have talked about like the impact that your upbringing had in during college and how that shaped you. How was your corporate experience? I'm curious, because I think I was like in a shocker when I first started corporate, because I thought I had made it, but it was just like, oh, we're getting started, like, oh, this is the beginning. So I'm curious to know what your experience was, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I think I really loved my experiences in corporate. And that maybe is not like a popular outlook to have, but I think I really liked it because of the structure.
Mm.
I'm like, I don't know if it's like competitive, if it's in the same spirit of like competitive, like game playing, like when you're playing board games, right? When you know the rules, you know how to play the game.
Okay. I see that.
So it's like, like if I want to get a promotion, the rules are clear how to get the promotion. Like,
Okay.
I'm not going to struggle to get a promotion here because I know what I got to do, right? I got to invest in my skills. I would spend like, I was an entry level software engineer, but I was always like, how can I learn more? Because I already knew that was like it's basically like school, but you're getting paid to learn. So
Mm.
I was in school learning, like struggling because I couldn't make ends meet. But now I'm like, I'm getting paid to learn this stuff and I'm going to get promoted to keep learning. So I'm like, this is my cup of tea here, getting paid to learn.
And I
Like,
love.
that's something I can do well.
Yeah, no, I love that you had that experience. And I'm curious to know, what kind of traits do you think your leadership had to make you feel excited about like pursuing growth? Because sometimes I feel like the disappointment comes when you see leaders that don't reflect the life that you want to live or the values that you have. So for you to share this, it makes me feel like you had a good leadership.
See, that is 100%. Yeah, you're right on the money because for sure your managers will make or break you, like spiritually,
To the
career wise, all the things. So I'm like, I'm gonna say this right now. I'm gonna name drop. Shout out to Dr. Ai Chow Ray. She was my first manager when I was just a young little 22, 23-year old. trying to find my way in corporate America. She has been super pivotal to like,
Mm,
it's like when you're so young, you're so like, what is the word? Sort of malleable in a way. Um,
mm,
and just having her there as my manager, she like set the bar for me. Like even to this day, like I don't work there anymore, and I'm 29 now. Not that decades have passed, but it's been 6 7 years since then. And a lot of what she showed, not only in the things she said, but she was really about it, right? She didn't just talk the talk; she walked the walk. That sticks with me to today and the way that I approach my leadership now. That's how impactful she was on me personally because, for example, she knew that I loved working on autonomous underwater vehicles. Like that was like a little niche that I was like jumping into.
mm.
I spent, aside from my full-time job, um, I would still after hours work volunteering at an organization at Arizona State University, their Desert Wave program. It's Women in Autonomous Vehicle Engineering. So literally building autonomous underwater vehicles for competition. I would spend my hours after work to go do that. So that was something that I just really enjoyed. And she knew that I had that interest. And when a position opened up at Boeing for a position that aligned with those skills, she was like, I got your resume. I applied for you. I put in the word for you. Like, I didn't have to tell her and telling her, like, oh, I want this or whatever. She was like, I saw this. I know you like this. She was like, I know I might lose you because she was like, I was on her direct team. She was like, but I want you to stay at the company. I
Yeah.
want you to thrive and I want you to be here, right? Like obviously she wanted me to stay within the company itself, but she would rather lose me as a team, like as a team player, but keep me around and keep me, you know, satisfied, engaged, all the things. So that was something completely like that blew my mind. That's going to stay with me forever because now the way that I approach even the staff that I have is same thing is like I want to develop you guys to be wonderful human beings, and if that means that I might lose you one day, that's okay. Because somehow things come around, things work out. But like if you are not going to be with coding, like I wouldn't imagine them being coding in color for the rest of their lives. But I'm like, so if you choose to go somewhere else, that's okay. I want you to be a happy, fulfilled human being, no matter where you go. So
Yeah,
yeah.
no, we're tearing up in here. That's so beautiful. That's like authentic leadership, and it is so amazing that you got that from another woman and like her authenticity. She was just like, you know what, I just want to develop you and for you to be happy. That is such a I think flourishing environment to be in, and I'm so happy that you got that experience. I'm even more curious as to, from having that great experience where you were getting paid to learn, and you had this other opportunity at Microsoft. um, what was it like to decide that you wanted to invest your time in your nonprofit, coding in color, because it seems like you were really happy.
Yeah, honestly, it's tough because uh, for all the reasons, right? Is I really loved my job, and I had so much satisfaction from it, and the pay was really good. The benefits are really good. I also had a fabulous manager at Microsoft. His name is Wes Barklow. I still like catch up with him to this day because he was just so supportive like the entire time that he managed like our team. And if I needed to take some time off, it was more about like get the deliverables done like when you say you are. How, when, where, he's like just get the work done when you say you're going to get it done, and just the opposite of whatever micromanagement is. And the team was thriving. Like we were getting our shit done. So he was also, and just like the person that he is absolutely wonderful. So another great manager that I got to experience, but it was really tough because I've had these wonderful experiences too, right? I wasn't necessarily burned in one way or another. And, it was February 2023. Microsoft, decided to lay off, like about 10,000 folks.
Yeah.
And my entire department was, well, not the entire department, but I think about half of the department was laid off, including my entire team, literally the whole team that I was on, that I was like, how are you guys going to do this without people working on your sensors or systems? But they figured it out. And actually, the rest of the organization that survived, they actually just sold that off. Um, so that organization I was with is not even with Microsoft anymore. Um, but I was trying to figure out, like, do I want to continue software engineering, something that I've really enjoyed this far, or do I want to dive into my nonprofit full time? So I actually started the nonprofit when I was in college because I saw sort of the disparities. I'm like, why are there 200 people in this room? Why am I the only Latina? Like, that is wild, because I grew up with, 90, 95% of the folks that I was surrounded by, they're all Latinos, first generation immigrants or children of immigrants. Like, that was my normal for 18 years of my life. So when I was exposed to not that, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, what's going on here? You can't help but notice it, right? When you're in a completely different environment. And then I just saw how much money you can make in these fields. And I was like, this needs to be sort of mixed up around here, because I'm like, if there's anyone that's really going to benefit from a multi six figure salary, it's going to be the kids that grow up not having much, and they need to know
Yeah.
about careers, and they need to know about the pathways, supported on those pathways to become these computing professionals. So that's when things started clicking for me. Started it my senior year of college. Ran it as a passion project for the years that I was a software engineer. And basically, when I was at that crossroads, I was telling Mauricio, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to take this as a sign from God that, like, this is an opportunity for me to run this nonprofit full time. And it's kind of funny how things started colliding, because I just had re-engaged with my faith maybe a year prior to that.
Mhm.
I had some back and forth with, like, my faith. I stepped away for a while because I was trying to figure some stuff out. Um, and I was talking to God and saying, in an ideal world, I would love to be able to work on tech and write software when I want to. I also want to work on my nonprofit like when I want to. I don't want to be strapped to a desk all day, like having to fit somebody else's schedule, when I feel like I have some sort of agency and I feel like I have something that I find deeply fulfilling and I need to get done. How can I do both? And I just feel like God put me in the express lane and said, "Be gone, girl." Like,
Yeah.
so I was like, I have to take this as a sign from God. Otherwise, like, I don't know why else. I don't know. I was just like, I think I just have to dive into this. And it was actually a really hard transition, because I felt like I was kind of ripped away from something that I really enjoyed. But we're here now. We're about in July, it'll be 2 years since we embraced Coding Color full time. And it has been quite the growth journey. Entrepreneurship is really tough, but it is a good sort of self development um,
It,
journey. And it really makes you look in the mirror like, girl.
oh my God. Yes. Thank you for sharing all of that. I am sure it was so difficult when you were excited to come every day to work and had a great team and a great technology to work on. I remember I talked to you when you were still there at HoloLens, right? And it was like such cool technology to be a part of. And sometimes the strategic plans are not there. The math isn't mathing for them. And so, it just happens that you were in that team. And I do believe we're always being guided to fulfill an ultimate purpose. And it doesn't mean that you have to make this like your whole life most of the time necessarily, but maybe something that you were always meant to do. So it's so amazing to hear that you interpret it that way. And it's like, yeah, I kind of asked for this, like in a way. And it's so funny when we like put our desires out there and then it just happens. You're like, wait a minute. You're like, wait a second here. This is actually a lot. And it takes a different Diana. It takes a different wait. It takes a different Diana to be a corporate baddie software engineer than to be corporate to be CEO of coding and color, Diana. So tell me about that transition. I attract a lot of women that have businesses as they're in corporate, or they are looking to transition into entrepreneurship or are interested in passion projects. So we would love to hear what was that transition like, and be real about it, because I do feel there's a lot of great things about being an entrepreneur. Like you mentioned, the calendar space, the freedom, which is apparently one of my top values, but it's also very hard.
Yeah, 100%. There's like it's like that little roller coaster. It's like the highs are highs, but the lows are low, and you're like, why did I do this to myself? Oh yes, my why. But
Yeah.
damn,
Yeah.
is I think going back to what I mentioned earlier is it's a direct mirror.
Mhm.
Your business is a direct mirror to who you are.
Yeah, and I do think it's a fast track ticket to personal development. You want to develop, become an entrepreneur.
Yes, 1,000%, because it will show you exactly when you're not on top of your game. Those emails are coming in. You got to respond like your life depends on it, because those are like opportunities knocking on your door. So like even yeah, the inboxes are long. I will say that, which is like a good thing, but it's like, oh my god, how do I stay on top of like all of these things? Because it's like not only like the partnerships, but it's like now we got to get funding. We got to charge people for certain things, and like now, like we have staff, so like they're asking me questions because they're like, they need support as well. And, on the nonprofit end, you have a board, and the board is also like, I need to rely on the board, but the board needs certain things from me. And it's like,
Wait, and how did you learn all of this? Because the nonprofit world is a whole thing.
yeah, it's definitely a journey. And I feel like I'm still very much on the entry end of it, because it is one of those things where it's like, I think like if you want to go into the nonprofit space and you really want to like impact tons of people, right? It's about disrupting or like adding to systems.
Mm.
And that requires you to like get involved with existing systems. Like you don't live like in a silo where it's like here's the service that I have, like come join, but it's like partnerships, and getting involved in like we are primarily involved in the K-12 system, but there's like things where it's like certain offices have funding, like for example, like the office of what is it, our broadband office. I didn't even know that existed prior to going into like full-time entrepreneurship. I was like, what is the broadband office here in Arizona? I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Or the Commerce Authority, or like the Office of Economic Development. I'm like, did not know these things existed. But now they're coming on your radar because sometimes they have funding and they're like, we need this thing installed, and we need like we have like, how can you help us get this thing like, and that's really like how you start to sustain yourself. And we're still like on the very entry end of things. We have not like, we're still figuring out like, because you're trying to build out those partnerships. And I think another challenging thing is because you're so new in the game, you don't have brand recognition. When you come in as like, let me see, if you have like a national chapter and then you have like sub chapters under that, there's brand recognition, right?
Yeah.
So if you're like Chef National, and then you start like a Chef chapter. It's like Chef is recognizable, so you're good on that front. But when you start something completely new, there's no brand recognition. So people are like, "Who are you? Can we trust you? We don't even know who you are, Diana. Like, you haven't put enough reps in for us to see, are you consistent? Are you putting in these programs?" So
Mm,
there's a lot sort of going on there that makes like your start a little slow because people are trying to figure out if you're really about it or you're just gonna start something up and then disappear and
yeah.
take people's money, right? So like there's just like a lot of and another big thing is like it's a relationship game. Like you can have all the wonderful data in the world, but if they cannot tie that to a relationship that they have with you, you're just another applicant in the pool. Like people are asking for money all the time. So it's
Yeah.
like, what makes you fundamentally different? Like everybody has good numbers. What makes you, Cody and Color, Diana, different? And it's because you show up to other people's things, you support, and you're also not always asking for stuff. Sometimes you just go because it's like, I just want to show up and see how I can help, whatever, It doesn't always have to result in something, but it's like you do have to get out and like have people see you because without that, like I said, you're just another pile in the in the bucket. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to it that I'm like,
Mm,
what did I get myself into? Like I came in because I'm like, I have this burning desire to like help these kids have access to these careers. But there's like so much more that goes into it than just that. That's the vision, but it's like there's a lot that goes on under the hood.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's tough too, even from like, and I know you know this too, Gina, because transitioning out of corporate life into full-time entrepreneurship is like there's also like a financial hit to that too. Like luckily we've made certain allocations and investments that help keep us where we are today. But without those in place, I don't know if I would have lasted this long in entrepreneurship, right? You have to put your eggs in other baskets
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
weather the sort of storms because being in the nonprofit space, especially early on, I'm not going to be making 200K that I was making in corporate, right? Like that's not feasible, and that's just not a pressure
Yeah.
that would be like
Maybe realistic or empowering.
productive.
Yeah. Productive.
Like focus on the mission, focus on advancing there. The money will come.
Yeah.
The only way to like survive that season is like you have to have investments elsewhere, and it's like what's your stock portfolio like? What is real estate, right? I know that's a big one for both of us. Is how are you going to be making money when your current maybe gig isn't giving you exactly that salary? And it's like you gotta diversify a little bit. And I think that's also a big one in our community or as first time like first generation sort of movers and groovers
Yeah.
is you can't spend every dollar.
Yeah. Yeah.
You like you start to make like good money, but it's like don't spend it all. Don't spend it all on like trips and like handbags and all these things. But it's like really leverage that to set up your life for freedom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really big one too.
Yeah, and I learned so much from that because you were talking. I was like, what is all of that, and I think it's so courageous, like the path that you've taken, and you have to have such a big mission and vision, um that you've shared with me before, and I would love for you to share it with the audience of tell us about coding and color. Let's look at the vision of why are you so motivated to keep going. And it's, you said, let me go back to my why, so let's go back to your why. Let's talk about coding and color for people who have never learned about coding and color, and what is that mission that makes you excited and balances that hardships when the roller coaster is down?
It does go down for sure. So, I always I love this question because I think back. I actually did a presentation on this in a fellowship that I'm in for All In Education because they want you to present your why. I also had to do it for an MBA application. Fortunately, I did not get into the MBA program, so but it asks you to dig into your why, and for me, I thought my why was I'm super passionate about computer science education, and I want to ensure that every student has access. They don't have to take it, they don't have to become computing professionals, but at least have access to a computer science or a technical education. So that is like at the core of what Coding Color is. So Coding Color's mission is to support underrepresented students in computing with the primary focus on computer science and AI education here in Arizona. So we're huge on exactly that. And then I started to think a little deeper, which is, but why is computer science education important to you? Like that is seems more of the vehicle, not necessarily the why.
Mm-hmm.
And digging deeper into that, it made me reflect on my own sort of upbringing and my own sort of life journey. And for me, it's about having autonomy and self-fulfillment. And I think that education, specifically computer science education, is a wonderful vehicle to get there. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason that I say that is, when it comes to human autonomy, is like for folks to have the proper resources and education to make empowered decisions in their lives, that I'm going to make decision A because I know the consequences, I know the risks, and I know the rewards, and I'm going to go after it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether Diana agrees with it or not doesn't matter. It's like that person is empowered to make that decision and to live that life.
Yeah.
But two is also folks having self-fulfillment. That's like a huge part of having like an engaged society, is that folks find meaning in their day-to-day lives. And the reason why I feel like computer science education is such a wonderful vehicle to get there is because we live in the United States. We live in a capitalist society. Like we need to make money, like to live our daily lives, right? That's kind of important. Without that one little piece, we'll struggle to feed ourselves, to clothe ourselves, all the things.
Yeah.
So it's like having that road to having some sort of stable life and something that is not just survival, but can get you to thrive.
Yeah.
And then maybe you don't want to do computing forever, right? Like
Yeah.
that's okay. But at least now you have a vehicle to help you invest in your life in a way like you can have experiences. You can invest in experiences, you can invest in skills, you can invest in things that are going to get you to the state of autonomy and self-fulfillment. And I think that is so, so deeply important to me. And that's what drives me in my work is like so many students that we work with may not feel empowered to make all the decisions in their lives, and they maybe feel pulled back from the financial resources of their family, the current situations that they're in. And it's like, how do we help you go from here to here?
Yeah.
And I think that my lived experience is proof that that computer science education is that vehicle. One of the vehicles. It's not the only vehicle.
Yeah, so powerful. Wow, that is so powerful. Thanks for sharing that with us. And autonomy and fulfillment is tied to so many of the drivers of leaders like you. And it's amazing to see that that vehicle was so fulfilling to you and you want to share that with younger generations, and the money be money, right? Like it's not just like, hey, I'm gonna have a career that's high paying, but also I have the technical skills and the critical thinking mindset to be in a society that's evolving so much, right? Like right now with ChatGPT hasn't even been around, like is it a year and a half, where it was adopted to the mainstream public, and it has already shifted things so much, and there's so many concerns and so many things that we're navigating, and that is why we need people who understand the technology and can be beacons of advocacy for our communities and how it's being used, but also just in the how it gets adopted, right, with everybody else. So it's amazing to have that vehicle, and that it has, just made your path empowering, because when you were talking about like what you're doing is gaining credibility, gaining visibility, asking for funding, asking for money, all of those things are not easily, like I cannot imagine, like as a software engineer, like you mean to tell me I'm gonna go do what? I need to go relationships, what? And so that just speaks on the whole leader that you are, because it's like you have this super perhaps left brain career that's very structured and pattern oriented, but then you've developed into the relationship builder. How are we going to get the money, the business person? And sometimes people don't understand that nonprofits are businesses. They just operate by a different set of rules. And so, yeah, I'm just like taking it all in, because you have such a beautiful mission and a beautiful organization, which is Coding in Color. Um, where do I want to go? Where do I want to go from here? For people who are looking to make change, and whether their vehicle is a business, an entrepreneurship, a nonprofit, through their own education, maybe their own story, what would you say is something that is important to you to hold on to as you move on? Like we talked about our why, but like I guess more personal to you and your happiness and your sanity.
Oh, that's actually a really tough one. I don't know if I have like a really great answer for that, honestly. But I do, for like full transparency, is I feel like I'm in a middle place right now.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is like the beginning is fun. The beginning is like this is cool, like we're gonna go get a bunch of stuff done, and right, you're just excited about the project, and then at the end of whatever that project is like you reach some sort of success, some sort of like, yeah, I made it moment. Right now I'm in the middle.
yeah,
The excitement of starting has ended. And the feeling of like, dude, we're solid right now, we're not there yet.
yeah,
And the middle is can get boring. The middle can get draining too. Um, and it feels wrong. It feels like, am I made for this? Am I supposed to do this? And it's just one of those things where sometimes you see like on social media, like, oh, they're killing it, this candle business or this, I don't know, craft business.
hmm,
They're killing it, right? From the moment that they started, they're like, boom, sales are up 100K a month. And it's like, those are unicorns. That's not a real reflection of entrepreneurship. Oh, it is a real reflection. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that it's like something you should set
yeah,
your goal towards, because it's a unicorn. You got to focus on developing yourself, being consistent, and being consistent on the days in which it might be gloomy. Like
yeah,
you're not going to be like given visibility every single day of your life. So
yeah.
you got to put in the hard work when nobody's looking.
Oh, damn. Got it. Like, yes. And I think that it's so important, because I don't think it takes the same mindset to work for somebody and be, whether that be corporate or anywhere else, and be an entrepreneur, especially a mission driven, heart driven entrepreneur. It takes a different type of person. And so thank you for being so real on that, because it is so real, y'all. Like entrepreneurship is not easy. Like it is really not. It is very, very difficult. And I'm so happy that you shared that, because it's so true. And there's that graph of like when you start, it's like the mm, not ignorant, pero como que the unaware excitement, right? You just don't know what you got yourself into, so you're really excited, and then there comes the low of like that you mentioned as to like I'm right here in the middle. I not where I want to be, and that excitement is gone. But I do want to recognize that in that middle, Diana, you've already created so much impact, like through like not just your organization, but in your own person, right? Like who you are is so inspiring, and you've received grants and fellowships and recognition already. So that is just, it just speaks to the impact that you already have, regardless of how it's going to look like in the future, or if Coding Color will change, or if you whatever path you decide to take. And I feel like part of your soul needed it, like needed this part. So I'm really happy that you decided to listen to it. And so as we're getting ready to close, I just want to thank you for taking the time and speaking to me. It is, again, I'm so inspired by you, and I'm so grateful for our friendship. You've made Phoenix really fun, and I'm so happy that we met. How can we'll go to finishing statements, but how can people stay connected to you? How can they support you and Coding in Color?
Yeah, so to stay connected, I can give you guys my email, but if you want to like really get to know me, you can also find me on Instagram. I have a funny name on there, so it's actually hard to. I'll spell it out. It's Debonair Diana. That's Debonair. Diana, Debonair Diana. But also for Coding in Color, you can also find us on Instagram at Coding in Color. And you can also find us at codingincolor.net. And then you'll be able to find all the information about us. And also there's like a little donate button in the top right of the feed.
Yeah, because you're doing that fundraiser, right?
Yes, we kicked it off for Arizona Gives Day, which is April 1st, but we have it ongoing until the end of April. So.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And to close off, what is one takeaway that you would like to share with our audience about like your journey, coming from, maybe growing up different than your peers are at NYU, and then having a great experience in corporate, and then now entrepreneurship, which requires like a different version of you. What would be maybe like piece of advice or something that you would love to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I think something that's been very pivotal to my life, and I really encourage this in others, is um, trying new experiences. That has been so pivotal to my development as a human being, especially prior to the age of 25, before that frontal lobe fully came into full effect. Is yeah, try all the things. Like this life is meant to be lived. Do not worry about, and I know this is easier said than done because some days I get in my head too, is, sometimes we get worried about the opinions of others, and that judgment that can get cast on us, right? But it is really pivotal for your own development and growth to not give a fuck about that and keep diving into things that you're curious about and you just want to give it a shot, because that's how you're going to figure out like what you gravitate towards. What is your purpose? What are the things you're interested in? If you don't try anything new, it's going to be really hard to figure that out. So,
Yeah, and it's so fun to liberate yourself and just be like, hey, I'm just gonna do it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, what is literally that's like the little scenario I play in my head is what is the worst that could happen, right? I literally said that to myself as I was like jumping off of a cliff, like to cliff dive. I was like,
Okay.
what's the worst that I could happen? Like, clearly I could die. But in my head, I was like, girl, you know how to swim. You're not going to die. Like, the worst that could happen is you're going to float back up again and you're going to be fine. So sometimes you kind of got to gaslight yourself. Like, what is the worst that could happen? You could die. But really, like,
Really, what's not gonna happen?
really, will you? No.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you so much, Diana, for your time. I really appreciate you. And I hope all of you listening can connect with her. And thank you. Thank
Thank you so
you.
much for having me, Gina. I appreciate you. And we will connect and get a little cafecito soon.
Yes, let's do it. Sale. Bye.
Bye, girl.